Hey, welcome everybody back to the Vegas Dice Kings here. Patent pending. Danny Flores right here, and I got Johnny Law. Anyhow, we welcome you. I got a big shout out to Jimmy Cheese. You know, he's been out for a little bit, having a little bit of problems going on, but we wish you back very soon.
Get better, Cheese. Get better. You need to get on your feet again.
Get on your feet and get the money for the bell. You know, you got to get out of jail, my friend, but that's not true.
You know, the real exciting thing is, and Johnny will back me up, and even the man behind the scenes, John Stiles, retired on Sunday.
Retired. How about that?
Good job, John.
Yeah, no more.
17 years at the Wynn Resort, Las Vegas. 17 years. Ran the Dice Pit for 17 years consecutive. Longest running show in town. Congratulations.
It's been a good run. Been a good run. The town's been good to me. Has been a very good run for me. I've got no complaints at all. 48 years doing this. So it's time. It's time for me to relax and leave it all to the young kids. You know what I mean?
He got offered a part-time job in an adult bookstore.
I did.
But he said, no, your things are half off. I can't do that.
I can't do that. Yeah, we're going to have a great show today, I believe.
Great show.
Like I said, Johnny Law's got a few things and that he'd like to run over, and you got somebody you want to shout out.
I want to give a shout out to my friend David and Princess. They have a wonderful boutique in the swap meet, indoor swap meet, which is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Go see David and Princess. They got stuff there that'll knock your socks off. And the prices are so good, so good. So go see David and Princess, and actually they're in Suite E18.
Now,
so go see them.
Catered?
Yes, the indoor swap meet. Yes, and they got the fabulous outfits. Yes.
Oh yeah, good.
The other thing I want to mention, in a couple of weeks, we got one of the most exciting guests to be on our show, Ralph Delegati. In fact, he's written several books, but this is his blockbuster, The Last Casino.
Yes.
47-year veteran, started in 1958 at the Nevada Club, and it'll go from there. He has some stories. So Ralph Delegati, and I know there's people that know Ralph, very well known here in Atlantic City from New York. And there you go, and let's turn it over to Johnny Law.
With Ralph, Ralph is one of them guys, we were younger, believe it or not, and he is the kind of guy that we looked up to, admired, and hoped to be something like him one day.
Absolutely.
A dealer like that, sharp in the business, you know. So the last couple of weeks, you guys had me on here 2 weeks ago. I did a real quick little introduction, some stuff about myself, but now that I'm going to be on here permanent, I felt like we should have a little bit of structure, have some stuff this way so the audience can hopefully, I'm big on audience participation. My class at UNLV, I really push for each of my students to get involved, makes it that much better. So last week we talked about having maybe themed weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit, because when we stopped last show on the 19th, we were talking about restaurants, and we got about 10 more categories to go through. So initially, when I first heard about these guys a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic, they had a radio show. So I went on a radio show. Everything clicked pretty good for John and the guys, and then for myself. We had the pandemic, and then they had invited me back. Thank you. And so what we're going to do is, from here on in, the show was built around table for table crap dealers, which the industry people know what I'm talking about. But I wanted, there's more. We want it to be about the way of life in Vegas in the 70s and the 80s. We mentioned that, we had a talk. I gotta say, and other people have said it, it was in the 70s, the early 80s, that really helped solidify what Vegas was at the time. The guys that were a little bit older than us, they didn't do like the crazy stuff that we did. And so I just wanted to let you know that the show, I want it to be more about a way of life, how we lived then and even how it reflects now. I mentioned that I used to love going to work every day. I used to love it. And it wasn't because maybe tonight will be a lot of fun. It was because maybe tonight will be a life-changing event. You always had that possibility between money, between celebrities, between players, between everything, the clubs, the bars, and Vegas was dynamite. And that's what we are trying to preserve. If you guys are watching this, if you know anybody, please get them involved with us, because if these stories die out, there's nobody else that can tell them. The young kids, a little bit younger than us, 40s, 30s, they really don't know what it was really like. And I know a lot of old crap dealers like myself. It's nice having these movies about Vegas and these books about Vegas, but some of them, like the fiction books, they're not really on. They use a lot of terms that we didn't use. We're just trying to make it as real as we can. So, like I said, we talked about some stuff last week. I am begging for your stories. You got our emails there. You can get hold of us. I don't want these stories to go like the implosions. However, implosions will be one of our topics. So last week, real quick, we talked about some ideas from the root of the show. We're going to hear stories about crap dealers, stickmen. Stickmen were an important part of the game. Stickmen, who were the big money makers? You know, this stuff like that. I want to hear these stories about crap dealers, but we also have a lot of other stuff we talked about. So we talked about what I just said about the books, using the word whale and a bunch of other things. We called them Georges, and they were the best of the best. They were great people. Probably the most loved, other than Kerry Packard, might be Jimmy Chagra, especially for crap dealers. I met him down at the Horseshoe in like 78, 79. You want to talk about a colorful man. But I haven't mentioned it yet. So when I got to Caesars, I was doing dice there for a while. And I remember I was doing Baccarat one night, and somebody came in and said, "Johnny, Jimmy Chagra's in the pit." I mean, it was like Santa Claus was here. So I went out, said hi. A lot of the other guys come, said hi. He was dealing with Kim, Kim.
Hi, young Kim.
Kim and Wendell might have even been there too.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Chagra, he was an old man, and he was playing $5 chips. You can't imagine the emotion that put through us, because we knew this guy. This guy is Hollywood legend. I mean, the whole story, we'll talk more in details about that, about him, his house, his business. He had two brothers that were attorneys. Lee got shot because he didn't pay off the Italians from New York. His brother, Joe, died in a car crash. He had a sister. His daughter, his older daughter, Catherine, wrote a book, kind of like a memoir of what they did. And these are the things we're talking about. This is what Vegas is, and this is what we want to keep alive. And then I'm looking forward to telling a lot of stories myself. I was lucky to get involved with a lot of people. I had my hands in a lot of stuff. So, for example, I was at Bally's, and Andrew Dice Clay comes in, and he's kind of new. He's a new player in town. Him and Sam Kinison, a friend of mine, started right around the same time. Actually, Sam started over he was over at the Dunes when I saw him. But so now Andrew Dice Clay, All right. So after a show, he's coming and playing for like 3, 4 nights. He wins a ton of money. He goes out, buys a brand new Mercedes, brings it down, takes all the bosses out there, and he's like total stiff so far. So I get off of work 4 o'clock in the morning, have a couple drinks. I call the National Wind Choir. I tell them, I said, listen, I think there's a cool story in Vegas here. I said, I work at Bally's. We got this amazing celebrity, supposedly. He's winning tons and tons of money. He ain't give us the time of day yet. You know, from our standpoint, we feel that's maybe newsworthy. So they tried to get my name and stuff. I said, listen, I'm not giving you my name. Anyways, eventually they said, well, then we can't do it, at least without your name. So I give him my name. The guy tells me, he says, we're going to give you a call tomorrow around noon with an update. I get a call the next day from around noon from somebody in Philadelphia where their headquarters, I guess, was. And they said, well, we really didn't find nothing to substantiate. We've looked into it and there's nothing we're going to do. Fine, whatever. That night I go to work. At Bally's, we signed in the dice pit. You go in and sign in and stuff, and that's where they had the book with the memos on the do's and the don'ts. And there's a big memo in bold print. Our celebrities at our hotel are your fellow employees. Anybody caught degrading, defaming, or anything, these fellow employees is cause for termination. So I think I know where that memo came from. We'll tell more details later. But that night, he started tipping, and he's always tipped since. So, you know, sometimes it takes a little push for some guys.
Yeah.
Like we talked about yesterday, dice guys. We had guys that want to bet more for us than them. So this is the mindset of the crap dealer back then. I'll talk later about Sam Kinison. What a great guy, man. What a great guy. He come to town. First couple times he came to town, he would get a hold of me before I got in, and I'd give him a little bag of pot. But over like 3 or 4 visits, started to see more celebrities around, and I knew it was time for me to walk away, you know, like, but it was just cool. If you guys know who Sam Kinison was, if you don't, look him up. He was a great Vegas guy. He was one of these party comedians. And he got killed on his way to do a show in Laughlin at the Riverside. So, and it was his honeymoon too. So what a bummer. So basically, we're going to start where we left last week, which was talking about restaurants. One restaurant, though, that I want to mention is, and it's maybe not a restaurant, but it was a snack counter at the Horseshoe. They had chili dogs that were unbelievable. The chili, everybody will say, was the best chili anywhere in the whole world. So for about 2 years, I had a big chili dog with onions and a piece of homemade pecan pie. Unbelievable. There was a girl, what the heck was her name? There was Elle. There was a guy, Paula. Paula was the girl. She ended up buying a house behind me in Winterwood, and guys broke in there, and she was in the shower. They beat her almost. She was almost dead. It changed everything. We'll talk about that later. But I just wanted to let you know that the snack counter at the Horseshoe back then, that was like a gourmet restaurant. Back then, what did we have? So Phil D'Angelo was on a show a couple weeks ago. I talked to him the other day. He went to Piero's to eat. Been around a long time. Talking about old restaurants. And I said, well, the other day I went down to Chicago Joe's. I mentioned Chicago Joe. What a great restaurant. But we were taking notes. Here's some of the older restaurants everybody has stories about. The Golden Stair is still around. I had to drive cab limo for about 6 months, and this is where I learned back then some of the strip clubs and stuff. the cab drivers, if you took clients in there, they'd give you, and this is back then, they were giving you $10, $15 each person. So, everybody was making money. Hugo's Cellar's still down there. I haven't eaten there myself for a long time. The Peppermill was a dark, cozy place. There was a lot of stuff went on around that little fire there at the Peppermill for years,
It was
right?
a hot time at the Peppermill.
That it was.
Right. It was like a dry spring fever. I don't know how you want to call it. Batista's still around. Piero's. We talked about Bob Taylor's. Quick story about Bob Taylor. So Pat was looking at it, and he started out. He was in World War II. He was a gunner in the planes, and his passion for guns, he opened up that skeet.
He opened up a skeet shooting place out there off Rio Vista, which is way out north. If people don't know, it's out there by 215 now.
Where
And
Floyd
Rio Vista.
Lamb Park, they
Floyd
call it
Lamb
now.
Park.
Used to be called Tully Springs.
Yeah,
That's correct.
But he was out there. He started that shooting range out there, and they had. He started inviting a lot of people from out of town, and they would come out for this shooting skeet and everything. And he started cooking for everybody, and he got all of his steaks and everything out of Chicago, which were fabulous steaks. I went out there as a little kid. I remember going out there, and
55 he started.
yeah, and he would always, to find out how the steaks, he cooked right in the middle. In fact, it's still there, the fireplace and everything he used. The fire pit, still there.
Mesquite.
Mesquite, put the mesquite wood, and he would always use his thumb. They called him thumbs, and he would tell you if it was rare, medium, done, just by
It's like magic.
filling it and everything.
And it was always right on.
Always right on.
He never fingered it.
He didn't have to finger.
Hey, there were no prongs or any utensils there, right? That was his big thing.
He used his hands.
Used
He
his
just
hands,
reached down and
cooked all
used
these
his hands.
steaks, and that was like kind of cool to watch him in action.
Yeah.
You go out there and the joint's packed on a Saturday night. It was like a show. It was kind of cool.
Even you said that they had they had Viva Las Vegas out there. They filmed out there, and they had Ann Margaret and them shooting for skeet, and none of them really could hit anything. And they had Bob Taylor in the background. He was doing the shooting, knocking the clays out.
So if you see that Viva Las Vegas, that skeet shooting scene, that's not Elvis and Margaret.
No,
That's Bob Taylor
that's
off
Bob
camera.
Taylor actually hitting the pigeons. It's funny.
So, and so later we'll talk about movies. A lot of people have been in movies. I've been in a couple. I was in Mars Attacks, and plus I'll bring in my photo that I got at the Landmark coming down. Those of you remember it, kind of cut in half.
Yeah, cut in
One
half,
half
and
fell. It was dynamite. But there was a movie, and then I was in Honeymoon in Vegas, which was kind of cool. Nicolas Cage just come out with a new movie. It's actually the first movie where the star is the star of the movie. So
Yeah.
he's himself, and I've always liked him. We were in leaving Las Vegas. So back when Vegas, the TV show was on with Dan Tana and stuff, I met the lady who did casting. I went down to do a casting thing where she takes your picture and stuff. Anyways, I remember it was the end of the day. We're talking. We walk out of the building together, and I have this big blue convertible Cadillac, kind of like the one in 48 Hours. And she looked at the car. She says, "Can I go for a ride?" Took a ride around the block. She says, "I'll give you $85 a day to use your car." I says, "I'm not in the show. My car is." And she said, "Yeah." So, anyways, my car was a big star on the Vegas show, which was a pretty good show.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It was kind of close. Everybody in Las Vegas, all you guys know what I'm talking about, because you're going to see a scene in a movie where they're talking in a car, they're in front of the Fremont, next scene, they're in front of Caesars, next scene. It's kind of weird. Probably the one like that sticks out most to me is in Con Air at the end. They're driving through the tunnel underneath the runways there. And in the movie, the tunnel's like 10 miles long.
Yeah.
So, just cool stuff like that. So, we'll talk a little bit more about restaurants. I got a good friend, Dave Jensen. He's running a show at, he's the boss out at South Point. What a great place, South Point. Dave Jensen, his wife, I met her. They both worked, I met him at Bally's. But the reason I'm mentioning South Point is because Michael's is by far one of the most famous, and
Well, it's a
right
good
there with the
restaurant.
Bacchanal room at Caesars.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Michael's. We'll talk more about Bootlegger. Who knows? Maybe we'll do an interview with Shelley Berkeley. She is, her and her husband, he was maitre d', she was a cocktail waitress at the Sands. So we have all this cool stuff. You guys haven't eaten down Oscars. It's a newer place. It's in the big dome down there at Union Plaza at the end of Fremont Street. So,
Yeah, they got quite a few. The old restaurants, man, they have a lot of
Well,
the really.
what are a
good
couple of your
ones.
favorites?
Oh, I like. Well, I always went to the Golden Steer because they had the John Wayne booth, and then they had the Frank Sinatra booth. There's a story about that too. When they opened it, Elvis and all them, even Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra, instead of coming to the front door to come in there, they had a back door that they would sneak in. And a lot of people didn't even know they were there. They would sneak in, they'd eat and everything, they'd skip out that secret door out there. And, you can go down there and ask them about, oh, yeah, we had the door back there.
Right.
It was that was really a good place. You had the Circus Steakhouse back
Right.
then. That was a good
It was
place.
great, actually.
That was a great place.
I think it's still around, is it?
yes.
Yeah, it's still
Yeah,
run.
still there.
The ones that's out of business is like the Green Shack, where they had the
Right.
fried chicken, stuff like that. That went
Mashed
out of
potatoes.
business. Yeah, they had the mashed potatoes, the gravy. They had all of that. The Hilltop House was
right,
one of the favorites for
Frog
all
legs.
of Vegas people.
Put one leg here and one leg there. Frog legs.
Yeah, they had the best frog legs. They sure did.
Pan-fried lobster.
Yeah, you got Bob and Pearls. It was there off Nellis. In fact, they were the original owners of the Swanky Club.
Oh,
out
wow.
Of out there in
right.
Henderson, sure.
The swanky.
Pat mentioned, you mentioned how the celebrities would come through a back door. That was because of the tourists that would be there, because the people who weren't down, I mentioned last week, I was at the Flame one time, and Frank Sinatra sat right next to me, and I remember, I don't feel like I'm like, hey, can I have your autograph and all that. It was just, I remember talking to him, and he was talking about a show that night, and
One of the gangs, one of the boys.
that's what it was,
It's like it was Major Riddle that had the theme for the Sultan's Table.
Oh,
He
right,
was,
yeah.
He was in a restaurant in, I believe, I can't remember where it was. It was another country. And I got the name there. And he opened that up in '64. It was in Mexico. It was in Mexico at a restaurant. And Arturo and his magic violins were playing. They were all Latin. He brought them over, and he opened up the Sultan's Table.
Yeah.
And when I went to work there as a busboy in the summer of '67, a couple of times when they were short, they'd send me over to the Sultan's Table, and you'd see all kinds of celebrities. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard
Nightly,
Burton.
right?
Yes.
Every night.
Elizabeth
It was
Taylor
every
and
night.
Richard Burton, when they were in town, they would be there. Cary Grant, when he would come over there because he was friends with one of the owners, and he would be there frequently. And you'd see the Rat Pack. They'd eat at the Sultan's Table. You'd see, you'd hear the violins playing.
Right.
The food was like a French, Latin kind of thing, and it was off the hook. It was first class. First class. The same thing when I had to go and wash dishes at the Dome of the Sea. There was water filled in the middle. There was like a seashell where the harpist played the harp.
Oh,
And
right.
They hired her. They had 8 different women audition, and they hired a blonde, real thin, beautiful, with long glowing hair, almost like a mermaid type thing. And it would go around, and she would play the harp.
Right.
And people
Sure
would be
did.
mesmerized.
That they did. Yeah, they had some really, really great restaurants. But, you know, it's a funny thing you said that. Most of your stars, if you run into them, you never seen like now. They have all these big bodyguards and everything all around them. They never had that back then. I mean, you could go up and shake their hand, and then they were fine with it. It was a totally different
You didn't
thing
have
than
cell
now.
phones, and you didn't have people gawking at them.
Yeah.
Like he was saying, I remember going to Michael's. When I was working at Caesars, I started going to Michael's in '78. Michael's at the Barbary Coast. The place was pretty much a dive if in joint standards, but the Michael's was first class.
That was wild.
You would see celebrities galore in there.
Had all that red brick in
I
there.
mean,
Yeah.
you'd see politicians, you'd see all of the, like he mentioned, Shelley Berkeley used to go there, Harry Reid, all of these people. And being a crap dealer, I always had I'd call up the guy, I can't remember his name, I'd say, Danny, man, I'm getting off in an hour. Okay, Danny. Yeah, I always gave him a C note. I always gave him $100. Some of those people that were wealthy just went on their own name, maybe give $20. Yeah, I got you. There's people waiting, all dressed to the nines, looking like $1 million. Here comes this crab dealer with a jacket. Right this way, Mr. F.
Right,
They call me
Take it
Mr.
right
F.
down, sure.
Yeah.
So Michael's, all right, he talked about the interior was gorgeous. At the South Point, they brought all that wood and all that stuff that was the Barbary Coast. Michael Young brought it down to the South Point, and you walk in there, it's kind of like, oh wow, this looks like the old place. So,
Yeah. That's wonderful, wonderful. The plates, everything they had back there as far as food was just it was off the chart. You're
You
right.
know the place, I know it's getting off the strip thing, but the place that a lot of people used to go to, and you'd see celebrities there, was the Tillerman. That's the place I
yeah.
was trying.
Oh, right,
Two
right,
story.
right, right,
You know,
right,
Tillerman had that
Two
salad
stories.
thing. They had that
Yeah,
big
the
salad
Lazy
thing.
Susan that would go around.
Yes.
And the plants. They were into plants. They had plants on the second floor everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
hey, right
It was
down on
great.
Flamingo Nation now.
Yeah.
All right, boys, we can go on forever with this. We're going to go ahead and maybe call it a day real quick here. We're going to talk a little bit more next week about some of this stuff. In another couple of weeks, Patton's next week's his last week, man.
Yeah.
Retirement.
I just met him. What a great
Ooh,
guy.
yes.
Retirement.
yeah.
Patton, tell them what you did with your jacket when you got off.
The first thing I did, I took the jacket off, I folded it up, and I went right out and laid it right in the trash. No more suits. Yeah, shirts, flip-flops, shorts.
Forget about it,
He
right?
ready
auctioned
to
off
go.
the tie, too.
Yeah, tie. In fact, I auctioned the tie off. I said, anybody want to start at 10,000? Nobody bid. I said, $10. Nobody bid. 10 cents. Nobody bid. Just give me a pair of scissors. Got it right here. Threw it away.
Right. All right. Next week, we're going to hear some more stories from him. We'll hear a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody,
Yes,
for
thank you.
watching. Keep on watching.
Yes.
Subscribe. And we enjoyed it. I always have fun with these guys and a lot of fun talking about this. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Do you want to write a book but you're not sure where to start? Well, what better time than now? You can learn how to plan, write, and launch your book in just 4 weeks. Writing and publishing a book can give you huge exposure, and when done right, will help you establish expertise and authority in your market. When it comes to creating and launching your book, it may be tempting to just dive into the world of writing and publishing, but this can leave you feeling scattered, uncertain of your message, and overwhelmed by your to-do list. This is why so many people give up and books go unpublished and stories go untold. Planning is the answer, and that's exactly what this e-course will help you do every step of the way. When you have a plan in place for how you'll write, publish, and market your book, the process is much more enjoyable and achievable. Go to my website now, JudyMoreo.com. That's JudyMoreo.com, and learn how.